Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
Fulfillment demand continues to skyrocket and outpace available labor. To keep up, warehouse operators are turning to flexible fulfillment solutions like 6 River Systems. Utilizing 6 River Systems' award-winning combination of collaborative robots, artificial intelligence, and operational expertise will make your associates and wall-to-wall fulfillment workflow more efficient. No new infrastructure, no change to warehouse layout, easy to deploy and scale, easy to train and retain associates, all at half the cost of traditional automation. Want to take your fulfillment operation to the next level? Go to www.6river.com to learn more. That's www.6river.com to learn more.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. On today's episode, we are going to talk about ROI. Typically, we're talking about different types of solutions on the podcast, but we haven't really touched on how to make sense of those solutions and kind of present them and bring them to your company or your manager or boss, leadership level, to make them understand that the solution will pay off over time. So I'm going to be joined by Chuck Coxhead. He is the Director of Sales and Marketing at Procensis, and he's going to tell us a little bit about Procensis, and he's also going to give us some perspective on what ROI is exactly and how do we calculate ROI within our industry to be able to make that decision of a yes, and how do we present it to someone that has the power to say yes and bring in a new solution into our operation and make us hopefully more efficient and better overall. So, Chuck, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, happy to have you on. We connected recently on LinkedIn, I think about a month ago, and it's been really great to have you in my network, and now happy to have you on the show.
Thanks so much. It seems to be the way that so many of us are connecting nowadays. It's nice to take it a little step further and actually engage with people beyond the platform.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of one of the only ways to interact with other people nowadays, too, right?
Sure enough.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about Procensis and what it is you guys do there?
Yeah, sure thing. So Procensis, we're a provider of hardware and software solutions. And what I like to say is that basically we're the warehousing, distribution, and manufacturing interface into your warehouse management system or your ERP.
Okay.
We're providing wearable mobile computing. We're providing, handheld, mountable, and wearable scanners, as well as voice assist for input into really any type of system. It could be a legacy system where we have to interact with Telnet, or it could be sort of more modern system that's browser-based where we can provide custom user interfaces and really a whole custom experience from a software perspective, and all with the intent of really improving the productivity of the manufacturing, distribution, operations personnel.
All right, great summary there. Yeah, I think that, without a doubt, I'm sure within your industry, you're working with customers who are looking to, as you said, create customized solutions that help benefit them and create more efficiencies overall in their operation and their operational flow. So I'm sure, without a doubt, you get asked all the time by your customers, what's going to be my ROI, right? And when will I reach my ROI, right? So why don't you first give us high level, ROI, what is it? What does it stand for?
Well, it stands for return on investment. At a very high level, return on investment, ROI, is actually a pretty basic term. It's actually a financial term.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way of evaluating the efficiency of an investment. Did I make any money?
Right.
How much did it cost? And how much is it worth today? Clearly, you can have a negative return. If I'm looking at the ROI on a car, straight up just the cost of the car,
yep,
it's probably going to be negative. If you're looking at a stock or a house or some capital expenditure, you're more than likely going to be positive.
All right, great explanation there, and I think that's the very simple, basic way to look at it. And so when you look at our industry, the material handling, warehousing, distribution industry, oftentimes we're looking at ROI as a cost savings measure, right? So talk to us a little bit about the different factors that go into ROI within our industry.
So really, when we're talking about ROI, and honestly, it's a bit of an overused term in manufacturing and operations. It's a great abbreviation. It's a great acronym.
Yeah.
But what we're really after is a cost-benefit analysis. And there are a lot of factors that go into it. And what we're talking about is primarily a capital expenditure, return on that. Now, of course, there are many reasons for ROI. There are ROI for investments in people and, as well as equipment and facilities and all those different sorts of things. But in a cost-benefit analysis, you're really looking at, what's your rate of return? In other words, on an annualized basis, how much am I saving? How much am I making?
Okay.
And, some of the things that go into that, of course, are the direct costs. There's the direct cost of the material. If it's capital expenditure in a traditional sense, in our sense, we're buying hardware and software. So there's the cost of the hardware and there's the cost of the software licenses. But of course, there are service contracts and there are service charges and installation and, and supplies. We're in the warehousing business, so there are barcode labels that get consumed on a regular basis. And then of course, there are end-of-life considerations such as trade-in value and things. For deeper cost-benefit analysis, and I don't want to go crazy with this, you get into crazy things with power and overhead, regulatory fees and taxes, but that's not really typically that level of detail required for capital expense in a warehouse operations. But then again, it depends on the long-term, length of the project, if you will.
Right. So you talked about some of the, I think, the easy things to kind of gather and data points to gather for ROI, which is the initial cost, right? So what's the cost of putting this solution in, whatever the case may be? Let's say it's implementing a new handheld picking device, something of that nature, or a wearable, right? So, that's the easy thing to get, right? Because you got somebody that's trying to sell it to you, and you can say, well, how much are you going to charge me, right? They're happy to tell you, right? So that's the easy data point, right? So how do we take that, and then how do we look at our existing operation or the process flow that we're kind of targeting in there? How do we take that and look at the inputs that are going into the current process, and then kind of pair that up with the cost of this solution and determine, is there actually going to be a savings in the long term or over an annualized basis? So
really, it's about a before and after look on a hard look at how you're doing things. You're really getting down into the weeds. So, sticking with the mobile solutions and the scanners, just to stay on topic,
right,
and give one example. I've worked with companies that were still doing everything in their operation with paper.
Ouch.
And the biggest barrier to technology improvements was oftentimes the leadership. But what you would have is you have people in other offices in other areas of the building, and how much time does it take them to print out the paper, walk it across the room, someone to get to it, someone then picks the product, they're writing it down on paper, they're delivering that to someone who does the data entry into the ERP system. Okay. That's just a crazy amount of time.
Right.
Let alone things like the support. Now you get into a scanning solution. Okay. And you're looking at, okay, well, now I'm connected to the ERP system or the warehouse management system, and a lot of those things go away. So that you take estimates of those times, okay, and you just literally strike them and say, this is the decrease in time, if you will.
Right.
But it really takes getting into the weeds. So it's a lot tougher for someone, let's say a warehouse manager, who's found a piece of tech that he really likes and wants to try and implement at the company. Well, you've got to go cross department there and cross to the other offices and ask. It's a lot easier for the warehouse manager to take a look at, what's the time that I do? Okay. What's the time that my person who's walking the cart or driving the forklift is spent doing that paper? Mm-hmm. Okay. Versus how long does it take me to move the packages and how long does it take me to scan and do what I need to do for the overhead and get that direct entry, and how much am I eliminating by getting rid of data entry where literally the stacks of paper pile up. It's about taking it piece by piece and examining what the flow is and what are all the things that we do, and then taking a look at your new scenario and saying, okay, this is what the new scenario looks like. Now, sometimes it's hard to do that. You don't have the equipment in-house, so you don't actually know what that's going to be. So sometimes you'll get assistance from the technical resources of the solution provider or the manufacturer or the software developer. They can give you estimates where it may save 20% or 30% or 40% depending on the solution. Okay, and if you know how long you're taking, then you can simply translate that into some number of hours that are being spent on a weekly basis doing that.
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Interesting. Yeah. And the big thing you're talking about there is time. And I'm curious, oftentimes something, at least in my experience, that goes into these calculations are the time studies. So you talked about kind of almost like parting out the different process steps and measuring how long does it take to do these different steps and certain parts of the process, like the paper-oriented process. So talk to us a little bit about, what does an effective time study look like?
There's two basic kinds that I'll just share with you. One's called a work sampling, okay, and the other is a time study, if you will, in the stopwatch sense. Okay. So a work sampling is basically it's an observation. Right. You have a clipboard, and you're saying, okay, at random times during my day, what is this person doing? This person is transporting product. This person is loading a bin. This person is driving the forklift. This person is receiving. This person is scanning. This person is doing data entry. Okay. Well, if you do that enough times for enough people and enough samples, okay, day in and day out, you'll literally achieve thousands of samples.
Right.
And then it's simple arithmetic. You say a percentage of the day is spent doing this, a percentage of the day is spent doing that. And honestly, you learn about human factors. A percentage of the day is, I'm a human, which is okay because it happens. Bio breaks happen. Yeah. So the other type of time study, and the one that sometimes makes people a little uneasy, okay, is the one that involves a stopwatch. Are there more things that you can do? Yeah, absolutely. I have an entire industrial engineering education, and that's not going to share it in this podcast. But that you're really measuring the micro or the small scale activity of what they do. I start an operation. I progress through the operation in this manner. It takes this long. Now, there are variations in I might do it a little slower than Kevin does, okay, because I might have a particular physical limitation, which is an extreme example, okay. But so even that, just like a work sampling, numerous samples are really, really important. One simple stopwatch doesn't really do it. Much like your podcast, on your first podcast, when you first started, it was new. You were a little potentially cumbersome. Well, maybe not you. You were probably fantastic. But, the person who's under the stopwatch for the first time, okay, they're going to be nervous. They might fumble. They might do this, that, and the other. Mm-hmm. So you practice it, and you do it repetitiously, till it becomes more like they would demonstrate in their day. Yeah. And then you do numerous samples. Then you come up with a mean or an average, okay? And that's your time spent doing that task. Now, some people don't like to be stopwatched. There are stories and anecdotes of industrial engineers and supervisors on high up in the mezzanine with stopwatches. Mm. But really, it's an opportunity. It's your first opportunity to start building your team of supporters. Mm-hmm. Hey, folks, if we can do this, I need your help. Yeah. If you help me with this time study and this stopwatch, then I'm hoping to get this involved. It's going to make your job and your life a lot more enjoyable, okay, and a lot easier. And in some ways, safer, and all those different benefits that you might have from a piece of technology like the ones that we offer. Right.
Yeah. That's a really good point there as well. Aside from the ROI and just trying to figure out these different things and whether they're viable or not, and they make sense. Getting your workers involved and kind of letting them know what you're trying to do. In my experience, definitely has helped to grow that relationship as well. But it's also helped them to feel more comfortable, communicating with you and speaking out about things that maybe in the process that they think could be improved or doesn't make sense as much. So really, really involving them, and like you said, not kind of being that, watching over from the mezzanine, but, talking to them about what they're doing and, lessening, I guess, the pressure that the stopwatch might put on them is really a chance for you to get them to open up a little more and to really help you out, because you're trying to, not only improve their, quality of life at work, but you're also, trying to help yourself improve too. And I'm sure, look good to your boss as well at some point. So, really, really interesting point there. And that kind of leads me into my next question is, a lot of times when we look at ROI, we're looking at the quantitative data points of that, right? Like time and cost and, overall savings in terms of dollar value. But sometimes there's some external factors and other factors like the human element, like you mentioned, in terms of, we talk about ergonomics and, safety, things of that nature. It's not necessarily something you can quantify. So how can you put something like that into your ROI calculation?
So that's really the difference between an ROI calculation and a cost-benefit analysis.
Okay.
That you're really not, you can't put it into an ROI calculation. Mm-hmm. But there are these other aspects that are really, truly important when you're implementing this CapEx. I mean, let's start with safety, right? Okay? Because honestly, we're all people. We're all part of the human race, and we got to care for each other. Mm-hmm. So, when you talk about ergonomics, okay, if the ergonomics of forklift are simple, okay, what's the alternative? The alternative is a lot of injuries and a lot of broken backs. Okay. But honestly, forklifts can be dangerous too. So you put in guards and you put in these types of things. Well, likewise with us, even with a solution like this, the ergonomics of being able to, of having hands free and not fumbling is really, really important to safety. I might pick up a package, and if I'm fumbling with a scanner, okay, and I drop the package, one, it can drop on a worker's foot. Mm-hmm. Two, it can damage the product, which impacts things like customer satisfaction, delivery, spoilage, and all these, impacts the cost negatively. And all that stems from safety. All that happened because a person is going to be self-preserving, and they're going to react. So there are these aspects of safety that are really, really important. Well, of course, given the current societal mess in which we're all living and is really, focused on heavily nowadays, there are also things like disinfection protocols that are truly, truly important. Right. Well, that's not to be undertaken lightly. And, honestly, I've heard these topics discussed at length. If I'm not mistaken, I heard that on one of your podcasts, and I was riveted.
Definitely.
But, you have to have equipment that is able to be disinfected, and there are different, ways of doing that. If it isn't, then the equipment will be damaged, and someone might make a bad decision that affects safety. And lastly, there are also features that can be implemented that affect distancing. When you address these things, okay, through technological solutions, and you discuss them with the users, the buy-in is going to be greater. They're more, as I said, they're self-preserving. They have a vested interest in their own safety. So you begin to win over those people. Okay, so that's safety. There's also learning. Okay? How long does it take to come up to speed? People have different abilities, different aptitudes, and different abilities to learn, and people learn in different ways. So how fast is this technology able to be implemented, and are people able to begin to generate return on that investment, okay, and that cost savings? That's what I refer to as rapid ROI. Okay. The faster you can get started, the more effective the solution can be. Is that to say that it's the most return on investment compared to some other solutions? Maybe not. But getting started sooner with your folks means that I can return those benefits sooner while I work on other technology solutions as well, or in conjunction. You examine the warehouse distribution marketplace in great detail in a lot of technology solutions. This is the one that can get you up and running very quickly. And some of the other things that that are really important is they're really intangibles. What's the impact on accuracy? Yeah. If you misplace inventory, smaller organizations, well, maybe all organizations, they're chasing product around the operation in the facility. That's lost time. It's lost productivity. It affects delivery, and ultimately it affects customer satisfaction and customer loyalty. You might lose them. Right. And that's an intangible. And I think probably not the last thing, but something that is really important is, what are you going to do with that time you get? I like to say, there's an old saying, do more with less. I don't believe in that. I want to do more with the same. Right. And, with that time that I've saved, what am I going to do? What's next? And as you build your team of supporters and you garner support for your implementation, that's really important things that they want to hear. They may not know they want to hear it, but when you bring it, you're going to be the hero. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think those are a ton of really good points. And I want to take a step back there. You mentioned something about the learning, and it kind of ties into our discussion about calculating the time and time studies. And I think that, it's really important to point out that some solutions to maybe implement it, you may look at the process, but you may forget that there is that training aspect, right, and the learning aspect of the process, right? So the solution you may be bringing in, you have to think about how much, like you said, how much time are you saving on the learning end too as well, because if you can get people in and get them started faster, especially during like peak times and holiday seasons when you're bringing in temp workers and you need them to, hit the ground running, the amount of time you can reduce for them to really get started and get going can really, really help you and help you get ahead of the peak volume and the higher volume as well. But yeah, I love what you said there at the end about, kind of being the champion and the hero, I guess, at the end of everything and the implementations and all that. And, if you can garner support along the way, like you mentioned, instead of just kind of dumping a new process or a new solution onto your workers or employees, it's a way better way to go, because you have better adoption, and people are more open to what's happening because they know what's happening, and they've known what you're trying to do. Because oftentimes you get people that they see something for the first time and they had no input, or at least no knowledge of what was happening, and they're resistant to change. So it's really really a good point there, to take it a step beyond and through the entire process of figuring out the ROI or the cost benefit, all those different things. So, once you figure out whether it's a ROI or cost benefit analysis, one of the things is that, and I've seen this myself and also in discussing within my network, there's
cool things happening out there in warehousing, distribution, technology. We talk about it on the show, and it's becoming more present. I think maybe in the mainstream, at least in the professional mainstream, on LinkedIn and things. See videos, and supply chain has become such a hot topic as well, especially with the pandemic. But oftentimes, like at the warehouse management level and things, they want to bring in new things, but they often don't have the power to say, okay, yes, let's add this to the budget, or as you mentioned, the CapEx. So, they need to take it to a higher level. So, once you have these calculations and your data in place, how do you recommend presenting it to that upper level management or the executive team to get them to, I guess, get on board with you as well as you have with your workers?
Well, now you're going into the area of change management and, honestly, salesmanship. Change management is, in my estimation, probably one of, if not the most difficult task or concept that gets implemented at any organization. Mm-hmm. Some people are resistant to change. Some people, they want to be involved in the idea. I don't want to go so far as to say it has to be their idea, but they want to be involved. So it really becomes about gathering your data, gathering your thoughts, putting it together in a solid presentation, mm-hmm. and then honestly floating your ideas. And you have to win a team. It's not necessarily one person. And that's why it's important to use, by backing up, it's why it's important to involve the users. If you have user buy-in, okay, then they're actually going to cheerlead for you. One of the most important things that we can do in sales is to multiply ourselves.
Right.
Okay. And if I can get my users telling the story as well as I can, that's at least 2 or 3 or 10 or 20 people that are doing the same thing. Where's this coming from? What is going on? And that's really what it's about. It's about taking your message to multiple team members, understanding and listening. What are their objections? What are their concerns? They may say things that maybe are a little not quite so straightforward. And you have to kind of read between the lines. What is it? Or do they feel threatened? Do they, or what is their role? What is their mode? Or do they benefit from bringing technology into the workplace and into the operation? If they do, then guess where you want to start? You want to start with that person who embraces change, embraces tech, and embraces improvement. If the company has a culture of continuous improvement, say a manufacturing operation with lean thinking, then that makes it very easy. So you really have to shop your idea across the team. Okay. And it's a teaching thing. Remember, not only is it salesmanship, it's also teaching. Right. The way people learn, as I said, there are 3 different ways. There are those who can just hear it and they learn. Well, that's above my pay grade. They're much better people than I am. Many people need to see it, and they learn that way. Other people need to experience it. And so if you're trying to implement tech, if you're able to get some demo equipment and put it in someone's hands, they can feel it, they can experience it, or at the very least, they can see one of their coworkers or their team members experiencing it, seeing how quickly they're able to adapt to it, how enthusiastic they are, whether or not they buy in. Mm-hmm. And so you really need to look at the different learning styles and look at the different people, and again, it comes down to salesmanship. What are the objections? What are their explicit needs? What are their intrinsic needs? Well, we all need to eat and breathe and have a good home, good warm home, right? That doesn't count. It's what are their explicit needs. Right. I need to improve the operation so that we can get an additional 20% of the packages out the door in, X number of whatever units it is. Okay. Right. That's some objective that they may have. If you understand what those objectives are, that makes your pitch easier, honestly. And yet that comes through asking questions, plain and simple, and trying to understand the people themselves.
Got it. Very well put. And I like the approach there, as well as kind of catering to different styles, and I guess in a sense, feeling out the room, right, and figuring out how they're going to present it. So I'm curious, from we get like a new manager, a new supervisor, first time in a management role. Maybe they get real excited, they get eager to try and make some changes and things of that nature. From your side, you're from the sales side, right? So you're bringing in solutions and presenting solutions to companies. How much can someone lean on a company like yours to help them through this process and help them understand, what they can do in terms of getting a cost benefit analysis, and then ultimately having some type of presentation to put together to the decision maker?
Well, honestly, that's what anyone who's trying to sell you something or help you to implement an improvement, that's what they do for a living. Mm-hmm. And you should be able to rely on them very mightily. Case studies and those types of savings should be readily available. Right. Honestly, if they're not, and they don't make you look good and make you feel comfortable early in the process, if they don't really feel like they're subject matter experts, then you look for a couple more. But you can rely on them mightily. For instance, we have studies on, what is the difference in using a hand scanner versus using a wearable scanner and wearable computer with voice assist. Okay. The learning curve is very, very short. I can see 20, 30% improvement just like that. No problem. And that's the kind of thing that we can bring to you any day. And most of these organizations are dying to tell those stories. Yeah. They have that information for you, and they really want to help. So even though not everybody likes a used car salesman, I happen to like him. A very, very good friend of mine. We're just great together. But those salesmen are really your best benefit. Not so much because they're the experts. They're not. Right. But they know who to get you in touch with. They know how to bring in the right resources for you, and they can do it quickly because there are people that are eager to jump up and help you.
Yeah. All right, great. Yeah, it's really great insight into working with someone like yourself as well on the sales side. And I think like you said, sometimes people are adverse to the idea of like a used car salesman. But I think that, like you said, if they're not kind of willing to support you and show you these examples and things of that nature, and really get you to the right solution, not just whatever solution, right? That makes them some money. I mean, I think that's really the great approach. And obviously, I know I wouldn't have you on the show if I didn't think you were that type of person. But I really appreciate from your side as well that you're trying to educate the consumer and the end user and the ones making those decisions as well. So it's a really good thing to see, and I think that. That's the way to go. And that's how you can kind of tell that an organization from a sales side is really going to be a partner for you and not just a provider, right? And I think that's more what you want for long term, especially if you're continuously trying to improve and always grow your company and be able to meet increased demands and just have a better work environment overall for your employees and your business. So. Is there anything else that we should know about ROI or cost benefit analysis? Any other steps in the process that someone who's trying to navigate this and figure it out for themselves should know? Yeah,
I think probably the strongest advice I can give to everyone is accept incremental progress. You have to understand that the larger the leap, the less probability you're going to have for success. Now, I'm an industrial engineer. I have 30 years of manufacturing and operations experience across all parts of the company, not just sales and marketing. Mm-hmm. And I started studying robotics and automated storage and retrieval and AGVs 35 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I love it.
Yeah.
And there are organizations for which those are the solution. I love them. But I have to say, that may not be the leap that your organization needs. Mm-hmm. Or can tolerate, or can afford, okay? or perhaps it's not the one that they can do yet. Or perhaps you'll end up in a hybrid environment, a mixed environment of both human and automation. Okay. So my advice really is don't bite off more than you can chew. Allow and accept incremental progress. Right. If I can implement this tech solution, then it buys us the time, additional capital, and the credibility to begin to take next steps. So take it easy, take it slow, and it's more important to win support and implement technology than it is to realize some massive pipe dream too soon.
Definitely. And I think, you got an interesting point there where you said, you love the AGVs and things like that and robotics, and but you kind of have to bring it down to earth a little bit sometimes, right? You don't want to get the shiny object syndrome, in a sense, thinking that, this is the hottest new technology. This is what I need, because it may not be the right thing for you or the right fit for you. And I think that you have a good point there that, you want to look at things incrementally. And I think that kind of calls back to a little bit of our discussion earlier about kind of dissecting the processes and really understanding where you're taking a long time, right? And looking at those processes and, like you said, focusing on the paper aspect and how do we eliminate that? And you may not eliminate paper by bringing in a robot, right? A robot's not going to take away all these different things, but it may be a smaller solution that leads to then a bigger solution from there, and you kind of grow exponentially on that. But I think that's a really good piece of advice, and the way to take that path to really improving your operation in the long run and continuously overall as well.
Well, everybody can't be Amazon.
That's right. Amazon doesn't want everybody else to be them, so that's the problem.
Amen to that.
All right, Chuck. Well, I really appreciate your insights and coming on the show and helping our listeners learn a little bit more about ROI and cost-benefit analysis and how to kind of look at these projects and kind of get started with them and go about them. And, we talk so much, as I said in the beginning of the show, about different solutions on the podcast. It's good to hear about how do we kind of go about thinking about those solutions in a smart way and not just an excited, oh, that's cool kind of way as well. So how can people find out more information about Procensis and get in touch with you?
Well, the easiest way is to just go to Procensis.com. And if you are one of those social media folks, we're real easy to find at Procensis, PROCENSIS.com. And, we love to pick up the phone and chat and really help people find those solutions. So that's really the best way is reach out. The water's warm, I promise you.
All right, great. And we'll put those links on the newwarehouse.com as well. So, Chuck, thank you so much again for sharing your insights on the show.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It's been a real pleasure.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.